Welcome to the Magic in the Cloud podcast, where exceptional visionaries reveal the personal journeys behind their remarkable success. This is a conversation with leaders who've transformed industries by navigating pivotal moments, making bold decisions, and cultivating extraordinary teams. We explore the turning points that define their careers, those instances where intuition met strategy and everything changed. It's an intimate look at the leadership philosophies that drive revolutionary outcomes, with cloud solutions as the quiet enabler. Here are your hosts, Joseph Griffith and Ryan Golombeski.
Welcome back to Magic in the Cloud, the show where hearts meet horsepower in the Salesforce ecosystem. I'm your host, Joe Griffith. Thanks for joining today. I've got a guest whose work speaks directly to the soul of the ecosystem. He's a Salesforce architect, a transformational coach, and founder of People First Method, a movement helping professionals build stronger careers, not just with code and clicks, but with connection, clarity, and confidence. In other words, let's turn your soft skills into hard money. From over 1,000 Salesforce projects to deeply human coaching experience, this message is simple but mighty. Your people skills are your power. Whether you're building tech or you're building a team, this episode is packed. So buckle up. We're about to get real in the cloud. With that, everybody, welcome my next guest, Mr. Jon Cline. Hey, Jon.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Great to be here.
My pleasure, man. Let's dive right into Salesforce and soft skills. I love this topic. Take us back, right? So there's a moment or experience in your journey where the spark hits for People First Method. What was that personal why behind that mission? Or what was the spark? What was the why?
You know, it really goes back to, I've been in the kind of IT space even before the Salesforce world, dating back to my work at the American Film Institute years ago. And I guess even before that at Pasadena City College. I think what I noticed is I was a technician at a computer lab. And it was really my first foray into technical work. I was just like evaluating college, thinking about quitting, honestly, after my first year. And I got this job at a 24/7 computer lab because back then, still people didn't have computers. They would rent them for $12 an hour at Kinko's.
Okay, yeah,
and
I remember
so
the days.
The school set up this lab to basically give people an alternative for $4 an hour. And so I went in, I was the 23rd employee hired. So I had the worst hours, like 3 a.m. to 8 a.m, whatever.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is that when people came in, that there were some that were, helping out with Microsoft Word, they're helping out with just different applications. And the people who I just observed, the people who knew the most about the technology were actually the most like cantankerous and annoying to our customers who were coming in and they're college students trying to get help.
Right.
And so as one who was like, well, I don't maybe know as much technology at that time as them, but I really know how to work with people. And so I found that my way of being patient with them, asking them questions, really trying to evaluate where are they coming from? What's their level of anxiety? What's really the driver and the aspects that are giving them a challenge was really a different circumstance. And I found that the outcomes that I was able to deliver, even though I may not have known as much as those other guys who'd been there longer, was much superior. And so it just kind of put a little flag in my mind. And as I went on to work at the American Film Institute, same thing. Now I'm dealing with much more challenging things with phones and printers and Mac, PC, and some Unix work. So lots of different things, but same idea. I noticed that the personal aspect really helped grease the gears to getting to the solution way beyond whether I was technically savvy at that particular moment on the topic, because I could always research, whatever the error was or whatever the circumstance was, but I couldn't go and just phone in my engagement with the person and helping them have the confidence that we're gonna get this done together. We're emotionally committed to this outcome with you. I want to help you get this job done. And that was really the catalyst of kind of helped it grow. And I just observed and leaned into that really all through my career until I started my Salesforce career in I was a user in 2003. and became a full-time consultant in 2009.
I love the parallels. There's the parallel that I'm drawing. If we look at the film industry and you say, first impression, technical or people? You go, oh, it's people. It's all about acting and skills and all that. People are like, whoa, do you know how much technical goes on behind the scenes? If you think about computers, you say, which is first? People are technical. They go, oh, technical. I'm like, wait a second. Do you know how much people goes on behind the scenes? So it's interesting that you took what you thought was your, lifelong dream, or at least something important you wanted to pursue, and you learned those two skill sets, and then you were able to transfer them to the lab. And I appreciate you, because I was the guy in the lab at 3 a.m. saying I can't get this program to run, and the guy would lean over and go, put a semicolon on line 7, the whole thing will run. I'm like, yeah, I love this guy. So now you've got this connection where you're like, oh, look at that. I may not know as much technically, but because I have really good communication and people skills, which builds trust and gathers insight into people's root cause, like why you feeling this way and all that. But so now you're making money as an architect, and you're in the Salesforce ecosystem. But what about the inspiration to start the business?
Yeah, it really started where, we all kind of in our journey, sometimes we move from being an individual contributor. So I worked for great organizations like Round Corner. I did a little bit with Code Science. I did a little bit with a group called C-Level down in Orange County. So I was kind of working in these organizations as an individual contributor, and then kind of went out on my own. And from there, you're an individual consultant for a little while. And then I just really wanted to build a team, because I love working with people. So after you've been in this ecosystem for a while, and people, there was a time where, everybody and their brother wanted to start a Salesforce career, right?
Yeah.
So I would get a lot of requests for that. And I'd start helping people on my own, just kind of independently. And I noticed that it was actually happening so often that it was starting to intrude into my available capacity to do work, to deliver projects. And so the question I had in my head was, I love this. How do I monetize my mentoring? What can I do? And so that caused me to go out and say, I'm going to build a team, and I'm going to invest in this team. And through the team, right, I'll be able to make a few nickels off of their time. And that's going to enable me to monetize this endeavor of mentoring. And so that actually turned out to be way better than I expected, with a really unique observation. Is I found that the people who already knew Salesforce and felt like their technical skills were the leading factor didn't do as well as people I found on the volleyball court, as a waiter at my table, who just kind of came through a friend and didn't already know Salesforce, but just were ready to learn. I basically began to forge this internal professional development program for them to teach them first these people first skills, and then leverage Trailhead and other aspects to kind of grow their skills technically over time, but really focused on these. And the success of these guys who did not have any Salesforce experience far exceeded the people who felt like they already had the experience, they already knew what to do. And so it was actually at their suggestion. They said, Jon, we love being part of this program. We think that other people should have access to this. And so you should record what you're doing with us, and you should create courses, and you should start putting it out there as a program. And so it was really their catalyst pushing me that I did this. And that's where it started.
Yeah, I love that. I can relate, because most people who know me as very outgoing, a lot of good people skills and all that. But up until I was age 16, I was more introverted. And that was due to mostly anxiety. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, for the people who are watching, I'm thinking about two people who are watching. One is I'm thinking about the technical people. They don't necessarily have to be in Salesforce, who perceive that they're a little introverted, who perceive that these are skills that are really difficult. The first question, a two-part question. The first question is, walk me through what are the actual initial obstacles and how people get over them, if you're someone like technical that's more in that stereotype. And question 2 is, if I'm the COO and I'm hiring you, what assurances, or talk to me about how you can show me that ROI? And I know that's a really tough question to try and measure that. But if we could start with the first one, which is, hey, I'm an introverted, nerdy kind of guy, I can't possibly learn this. Like, how do you help me get over that?
It's a great point, and I think it's one of the leading kind of headwinds for people making progress here. First thing I think is that people think, let's say it's public speaking, right? The data shows that people fear public speaking more than death. Many people do.
Yeah.
I think one, that comes from an expectation or an understanding that things like public speaking are talents that I'm born with, not necessarily skills that I can develop. And you talk to any singer, they may not have been the best sounding person in the beginning, but as they honed and trained their voice, they became amazing. So it wasn't something that they were just born with as a talent. So I think first is getting over that element, that this skill, whether it's negotiating, being cool under pressure, being able to ask really solid questions, being able to have a rubric where I can now see a situation on the basis of values and culture. I can leverage small talk as strategy. These are all things that people can learn and grow with practice. So that's the first thing people need to get over, is it's not just about having talent. Ask any coach, high school, college, sports. Do you want someone who's already talented, or do you want someone who's ready to grow in skills and give the effort? 100% of the time, they'll say, I don't want the person who just believes they have the talent because they're lazy. They don't want to dig in. They don't want to give the effort. Give me the person who believes that this is something that can transform their life and they're willing to give the effort to grow the skills. I will turn that person into a superstar. So I think those are kind of key aspects to help people get over this. And also just thinking about, as a segue from that question to your second one, I actually was curious why the people who didn't have the great technical skills, like I said, I met them on the volleyball court, or one guy was a TaskRabbit, helped me take a couch up the stairs, right?
Yeah.
And I was curious, why is it that they're more successful? And I actually started doing my own research on project failures. Not a popular topic. I mean, when's the last time you went to a pub and somebody's like, hey, Joe, I just had this project, massive failure, man. You want to hear about it?
Yeah. Although I'm creating a list for, I forget the name of it, but it's called like complex bar discussions, right? So we'll add it to the list, and maybe we'll have a round table with all my other guests, and we'll call it complex bar discussion. Yeah. Tales from fails. I love it.
Yes. So most people don't know this. So when I started doing my own research, so I leveraged AI tools like Notebook LM, for example. I'm adding a ton of use cases, and McKinsey and Project Management Institute, they got a bunch of good data on this.
Yeah.
So you look at the data across 25,000 projects over 3 decades, the top 10 reasons those projects fail are all non-technical. Top 3 are communication, poor project management practices, and poor alignment on the definition of done, right? All your stakeholders, they might describe it the same, but they got a different picture of what done looks like. So if we're going to move the needle on having more success, we're going to need to attack those top 10 reasons, none of which have to do with technical proficiency or certifications on that side. So to your second question, right, which was, I'm trying to recall now. What was your second question?
If I'm a COO, I'm like, yeah, this is all great. My people are nicer, friendlier, and all that. Show me the ROI. And I think where part of your conversation is headed is, hey, if I told you that I could take your IT project failure rate from what you and I know is probably I think we're still in the mid 80s, and appreciate the definition of done. I'm telling you that, look, that number is going to be way, way lower after hanging out with me for a year.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, my belief is that we can actually get to a 98% success rate, because you're right. The data shows 45 to 95% failure rate for technical projects.
Okay.
The number one corollary to that is the size of the project. So the immediate way to reduce risk is to reduce the size of the project. But beyond that, I think the ROI is, especially in the Salesforce world, it's going to be on much fewer escalations, right? So that's escalations to the executives. That's going to be, therefore, much fewer red accounts. And those escalations make their way over to the AEs, to the AVPs, RVPs on the Salesforce side, which might impact, right, lead flow and positivity in that side. It's going to affect, it's going to increase or improve sales, because if you have happier customers, they land and expand, allow you to land and expand and renew more often. They give you customer satisfaction videos and feedback and app exchange reviews much more often, which totally greases the wheels on your sales process. And not only that, but you think about retention. It's really hard in this market, right? So we think people who love the people they work with, they're emotionally committed, they are aligned with the business that's demonstrating this kind of culture and values. Those people are going to stick around in your organization. They're going to stick around with their own team members, and that's going to save a ton of money, risk, and challenge in having to replace them on a regular basis. So that's just a few of the areas. I mean, we could go on as it relates to, you look at the data, it's billions every year in lost project revenues and things you have to do over. And then not to mention the lawsuits and all of the lost opportunities. There's a ton here. And I think it's just establishing what they really care about and they want to measure against. But I think there's positive results across the board on those aspects.
Yeah, I think that's something that a COO would love to hear. And to your point about how did we get there? What are the root causes to all this? I'm a little older than you, and I didn't really understand what was going on in the 80s and 90s when I was selling the work, not doing the work. What I really didn't understand back then, right? Everything took 6 months, right? But I really don't remember, hey, we went live and there were problems, right? There were definitely enhancements or other things they wanted to do, but the go live was just, we just didn't have as much failure. And then we get into this Salesforce, SaaS-based software in Salesforce, and just out of feel, we'll deal with it later. And if you've had Salesforce for 20 years, that's 20 years of unstructured development. And I don't mean from a technical perspective. I mean from a design requirements, architecture perspective, right? Business process perspective. And if you're at 10 years, you're probably in trouble. If you're at 5 years, you might be okay. But the studies are showing now that of the 4 major components to deploying or executing on a project, the first 2 are pretty much skipped in the Salesforce ecosystem. People just will, let me give you what you want. We'll figure out what the impact is later. And that's come back to haunt us, this unstructured approach to things. So I think that's a great way. I think one of my thoughts here, John, you tell me if I'm right. One of the biggest challenges is having to sit down and say, so after all this training, the beginning of your project is going to take a little longer. What do you mean going to take a little longer? Well, let's define success. If the upfront takes a little longer and the overall project takes a little longer, but when we go live, it's deemed a success, which means no rework, no missed business processes, et cetera. Could you live with that? And they'll all tell you yes. So tell me if you disagree, but that's what I've seen.
You've just demonstrated. It's a great point. You've just demonstrated a key aspect here, right? By asking that question up front, you're setting expectations and you're using your conversation as a recon device to know where your stakeholder is coming from. Asking a simple question like, would you rather do it fast or do it right? Right? And listen to what people say. And if you think about any given role in the Salesforce ecosystem, because you're exactly right, Salesforce's flexibility and ease actually creates a risk, right? Because now it doesn't take the contemplation and there's not the hurdle to get over. And so people can rush to delivering much too fast and not understand the impact it's going to have downstream without a custodian over that or whatever it might be. So every role has 3 major components, right? It's the why, the what, and the how. And many times, people move very quickly through the why and even through the what, and they want to move to the how. But that's problematic in general. And now if you think about AI kind of moving into the basement of our roles, AI is going to help with a lot of the how. And so it's very important to understand. Sidebar, MIT shows that of AI projects, 70% of them fail. So more technology is not solving this problem. We need to have more clarity. We need to have more buy-in, right? More commitment. And we need to spend more time in the why to understand who are our users? What's the experience these various classes and groups of users need? Because there's a chain of pain, to borrow something from, Peter Cohan's book, Great Demo.
Nice.
Right? The chain of pain is different. It's different for my executive. It's different for my mid-level manager. It's different for my team leaders, and it's different for my individual contributors. So if I'm not spending the time of like going through all of those and saying, does my solution speak to that chain of pain to make sure that everybody is on board and bought in with this change and they're willing to exert the effort to make this a success for the business, then I'm already setting myself up for failure. If not on the technical side of not exactly knowing what I'm supposed to do and am I hitting the wrong target, but not having buy-in with the people who say, I don't care if you have a technical utopia, you never got my feedback, I'm not interested, and what I'm doing works for me, is the devil that I know.
I'm working with two companies that I couldn't agree with you more. This parallels the whole buzz. I do want to ask you a question about how you're incorporating AI into your offering. I also want to ask you a question about who would benefit from taking your from working with the organization from People First method. But before we do that, I just want to mention that I think you struck a nerve around AI, which is I saw the AI projects failing at a rate greater than your standard IT projects. So I kept saying to myself, why is that failing? And to me, what I see is the root cause goes all the way back to executive readiness. So if the CEO, CFO, C-suite may say, yeah, we all want to double EBITDA within 3 years. I have a client, double EBITDA within 3 years. Great, we're on the same fiscal objective. Through some AI tools and research, you find out, well, we all want to double EBITDA in 3 years, but 3 people have a completely different perspective on how to do that. So you're not as aligned as you think you are. And that means that if you're not aligned, that means by the time that initiative gets trickled down and winds up as an IT project, it could be completely aligned with those 3 people or completely misaligned, these 3 people. So I think going all the way back to saying executive readiness, that's what to me, your methodology will also extract that, saying, hey, hold on a second, before we build, I've got some misalignment here based upon these questions I've been asking about what success looks like, things like that. So we talked a little bit about Salesforce. You and I both love the ecosystem. We've been in it for a while. We talked about techies, but you offer this to many more people than that. Describe for me who would benefit from working with People First method.
Well, thank you for the question. And just to follow up on what you said earlier, half this battle is essentially putting on a lens and having the ability to recognize these challenges, how to recognize that dissonance and misalignment, how to perceive what you're listening to. For example, most people go into meetings, they have the requirements they need to gather, they have specific, discovery details they want to get, and they go for those things. But there's a whole layer of things around, like all the political dimensions in that room. Who failed on this before I got here? Who's trying to sabotage the other person because they want to get the promotion that they want, that they had? Or who's really not bought into this project because they think it's a waste of time and wish that we were never hired? There's all sorts of these things that are happening. And so if you're not conscious about this kind of subterfuge that's going on, and you have the ability to turn adversaries into advocates as part of this process, then whether you get the requirements correctly or not has little impact on whether that project will be successful. There are so many more success factors that go into play well beyond the technology, right? So here in California, I think about it like the In-N-Out burger. Everybody knows In-N-Out burger, right? So the technical details are the sweet and savory patty. It's great. But what really makes the burger is the bun, the veggies, the secret sauce, the presentation, the fries. All that stuff is actually what makes it a meal. And those are the soft skills that really need to be developed. So to go to your point on, who's a good candidate for this, I think, from my perspective, certainly we would love it if leadership would take the lead and be great examples in their organizations, because we want to equip them not only to understand this aspect of like, how should I be viewing the horizon? What are those dimensions that maybe I've been overlooking and not really coaching my team on, so they can lead their own teams and start to create incentive programs internally that recognize, hey man, who's the soft skill superstar this week, right? And really start to lay down a groundwork to say that, what's our definition of done as it relates to a successful project? Is that we had a deployment that didn't have a failure, didn't have a bunch of errors? Or is it the fact that when we sold this project, the client said they wanted to double EBITDA, or they wanted to increase, their service efficiency by 30%? Okay, how do we measure that? And therefore, how do we go all the way down to make sure that the people first dimensions of that are actually realized? And when we start to do that, we start to change the paradigm inside of our organization about what's really most important about how we engage. So we certainly would love to talk to leadership, right? We provide support for private cohorts for their teams so they can set up one that's unique to their business. We also work, department heads, and then individual growth-minded learners can join one of our public cohorts.
Yeah, let's talk about that. But before I want to talk a little bit about how people can engage public, private cohorts, things like that. And then, but you reminded me of one thing that I think is really important for the audience to know. You reminded me of something, a training course where, as a leader, I was required to go. They call it the parent going with the kids. And when we showed up, they said, the reason you're in the room is because when we teach these people these crazy ideas, we want you to witness them. So when they come back, you're like, you're out of your mind, right? And so if I'd gone up for 2 days and then come back and say, oh, I'm so excited for you guys to go up there. What you're saying is if you can get leadership involved first, arguably have them get engaged with your methodology, then that's a huge KPI for success of the organization and those behaviors and those changes, even for the most gregarious, open-minded, people type people. That would be ideal, right? Is leadership getting involved as the parent, if you will, and then bringing the kids along, dude. It completely changed the way we did things in this organization. I mean, complete 180, and I would have definitely been against it. And I would tell you that it had a big impact on my career. So that radical change, it was a nice job of getting me to buy in first before I ask my people to do it.
It's a great point. Let me give you one example of why that would be relevant. So in our first session, we do introductions in a cohort, and then we talk about, as part of those introductions, people share a little bit about themselves, what their interests are, things like that, right? We get to know as people. And then we turn it around and say, did you guys know that what you're doing here was actually strategic? Because you can leverage small talk as strategy every single meeting. As you're waiting for that one last person, the first 5 minutes of every meeting can be transformative. And I'll give one example. Every set of stakeholders is usually one or two, right? Maybe they're older, they're more mature, they got more experience than me. And so there's an initial resistance to, like, who's this hot shot coming in thinking they're going to tell me, teach me, show me how to get it done, right? Like, I know what I'm doing here, man. I've been around the block, right? Now, if I'm going to try and teach that guy some concept, right? They say how AI works, Agentforce, like whatever, right? There's that initial resistance. He doesn't really know who I am. And I don't necessarily have all of the time to build rapport to be able to help him understand that I'm just trying to help him. I'm not trying to, like, be condescending or, be the know-it-all, anything like that. So we have a couple strategies that we talk about, one of which is using small talk as strategy. So when I dig in, I'm like, hey, what are you into? What'd you do this last weekend? Whatever it might be. So maybe he shares, I was going to my grandkids' baseball game. It's super fun. I played baseball when I was in college. Okay, perfect. I just take a note on that. I don't only take note on the discovery things I needed from the call. I'm taking note that Frank loves baseball, and I'm going to share that with everybody. Why? So later on, when I want to help Frank understand the significance of, let's say, a research AI case study, right? Or like a use case, I'm going to use a baseball analogy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, hey, it's like you're at the mound. Imagine, right? And instead of the catcher just kind of giving you a 1 or a 2, he's got 25 years of data, right, on this team and on this particular player over the last 5 years, and he's going to tell you exactly what works best when this guy's high in the count. Wouldn't that be great for you as a pitcher? And wouldn't that increase your success rate to get that guy off the plate? Okay, the guy might not like learning new things, and he might not like learning from me as a young kid or whatever, but he loves baseball. And since I filtered it through baseball, he's already positively disposed to listen to what I say. And then it just goes on and on. We have tactics around how to say no by saying yes, because most executives, they don't like hearing the word no. So we can say no by saying yes. right? And it's a simple formula. For example, first thing you do is you validate the offer, or excuse me, you validate the ask. Hey, thanks so much. That sounds really valuable. I could see how you'd love to have that for the business, how valuable that would be for your customers. Then you validate the assignment. And thank you that you believe in us, that we could do something in such a short amount of time, or, in such a quick turnaround window, or throw it into the current sprint. I really appreciate your trust in us. Now, let me tell you, this is what I can do, right? I can make more time here. I can make a trade there. Okay, perfect. He kept listening the entire time. I didn't commit my team for weekends and nights. I didn't throw us into red account potential risk by offering something that we actually can't deliver on in this time frame. But I did it all in a way that kept him engaged, and I found something that I could offer so that he could say yes. So that's an example of the aspects that we want, the alignment, like you're talking about. We want the boss to recognize that when he's on the call and when she's listening in, that they're like, why are you guys not getting to the point so fast in the beginning of the meeting? That's because we're using small talk as strategy, right? Why don't you just be clear with the customer and just tell them no? Well, that's because we want to keep them engaged. And we want them to feel very positive in the fact that we're working with them, trying to negotiate a solution to give them some of what they want, even if we can't give them everything they want. All these aspects help people recognize that, like, you're really listening to me. You're really responsive to my unique needs and don't have some boilerplate approach about how to deliver this project. And you recognize that, we have some secret sauce that we want to incorporate into this process. And you're going to have to do a little like muddling in the weeds in order to figure that out with us.
Yeah. And so for the person who's more introverted, more technical, you're saying, hey, the first 5 minutes and probably the last 5 minutes matter. And don't worry, we can help you with the open-ended conversations or the types of things to ask or how to ask them. What we need from you is to commit to appreciate that those first 5 minutes and those last 5 minutes are as important as the 50 minutes where you were talking about your comfort zone, right? Which is architecture and systems integration and data conversion and all that good stuff. So, and I do think this is, I think you and I both learned, you're a film guy and then you were a gearhead and now you're back, you're doing both. But I was supposed to be an engineer and it just didn't really go, I think, that way. But I definitely would say that my confidence around the small talk came from someone showing me, hey, here's 15 things you can talk about, all that matter, right? Some of them are just building a connection and trust. Some of them are learning a little bit about the inside into the way they make decisions.
Yes.
Some of them are a little bit about
what their anxieties are.
The anxieties are, things like that. So, yeah, there's a method to the madness, right? It's not just, hey, how's the weather? That's not a... It's not just a scripted thing, right?
You got it. So we try and, we train them on the concept and give them ways to practice. And then, for example, with the small talk strategy, we provide a little card deck. So like when they're about to go into the meeting, they have this little card deck that they can separate by topic and figure out
Seriously,
I'm gonna, this one, like,
oh,
and so
man.
it's really
Come
easy.
on, you got the card deck too?
Yes.
That's rocking, dude. That's rocking.
Yeah.
You got to have the cheat sheet, right? You got to have the little cheat sheet. You know what people think when you look at a piece of paper, and you're looking down at that piece of paper, you know what they think? How thoughtful that Jon is.
Yep.
He's so thoughtful for us. He wrote it down. Most people see it as a crutch. I think most people
preparation.
Perceive it as he was prepared. Yeah, exactly, man.
Absolutely. And
That's
same
awesome.
thing with this is what I can do, which is provide them the formula. They get into, how often does a stakeholder try and push you and manipulate, right? And see how they can grind you. And so they just look at the formula, validate the ask, validate the assignment, right? Envision the offer. I can do this.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So before we talked a little, we go to the second part of our conversation, a little bit more about you. I have the proverbial, so how's AI impacting your tools, your methodology, and how you coach people today?
Well, that's a good point. And we've updated our course as we go along, as of course, AI continues to evolve both in, a few success stories and then also kind of several dead ends. So for us, we're actually developing a people first playbook for AI, helping people take a little bit more of a curated path and understanding that there's lots of different types of AI, right? There's reflective AI, there's co-op AI, there's agentic AI as well, which at this point actually has a lot lower success rate. So we want them to kind of identify what are those aspects of AI that really put a cape on those roles in your business rather than an escape from those roles in your business.
I love the analogy.
Right? Because that's really what you want to provide for your team. And that's where you can take a high empathy approach to enlisting your team. And I actually speak about this called it's a roadmap for Agent Force acceptance and adoption. Because if you don't have your team accept your vision of like, this is where we envision AI participating in our process here. This is how we understand digital labor contributing to what we're doing here. If you don't onboard and enlist your team and get them aligned with you on that, productivity goes way down, even if you haven't actually fired them. As soon as they think that you're going to be an AI first business, which I never recommend people use, by the way, can you imagine the employees and they hear their executives say, hey, we're going to be an AI first business. Who's happy? Almost nobody. But if you say that, you know what, we want to provide co-op AI that helps you guys do the things that you wanted to do, but you don't have time, do the things that you're doing, but do them better, and to offload some of the things that you hate doing, but yet still have kind of creative control and, you know, initiative to make decisions, to override. Now they're excited. And that takes people first kind of priorities and really good soft skills to make it happen. So for us, we're incorporating that, highlighting, hey, this is, for example, you know, how you can use AI to create kind of use cases and test cases, for example, or this is how you can use it for research or those aspects. We're incorporating that in there, but there's actually nothing that can replace human empathy that AI provides. Right. The example I give to people is, you know, when's the last time you went to the grocery store and you went through the check stand and the guy's checking you in and he's like, beep, beep. And he's talking to his buddy like, oh yeah, dude, we're going to go drinking tonight. Beep, beep. And he's like, that'll be $50. Okay, great. So you pay your bill. Then you go and you get in the car, you look at your bill and make sure everything's good. And at the bottom of the receipt, what does it say?
CSAT
Thank
survey.
you. Thank you for your business.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my gosh, I start gushing. I'm so emotional, right? Because they thank me for their business. No, the opportunity was for that checker to look me in the eye and say, you know what? Thank you so much for shopping here. There are 5 grocery stores within 5 miles of here. Because you shop here, I get to have a job. So if there's ever anything you don't see on the shelf that you want, please let me know because we're here to serve you.
Yeah. You ever read Raving Fans? I don't know if you've read Raving Fans, but it's the same dude that wrote the 1 Minute Manager, and he uses a grocery store as one of his examples. But it talks about how that experience at the grocery store, given that there are 5 in the area, given that they're all, you know, what people care about are they just not super expensive? You know, they have certain things about, like, they have good meats, whatever. There's certain features they like. But at the end of the day, they'll travel an hour to go to a place where the customer service is built with raving fans of the business. Before we go over to the personal side, I think you hit on something with AI that's really important. I would still consider myself naive on how leadership is looking at this. But I will tell you that when I start to talk about anything AI and lead with AI and try and show that as a feature, they panic, right? Because they go to compliance and they go, well, we only have this approved. Like, you're not going to use. I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't have said the word. I just stay with the old words like due diligence and all that good stuff. Don't use AI. And to me, John, I think this would be an interesting topic for another one, which is where have you seen in our careers where it's such a cool thing and a scary thing? And what you're saying, if you don't communicate, humans will assume the worst. So talk about an attraction tool. How to use AI as an attraction tool. The very first thing you do is communicate that they're not going away. And John, the one thing that stands out to me that makes people super scared and makes them quit is M&A. Because when M&A occurs, they all talk about, we're going to get acquired. We found a cultural fit and this a fit. They talk about that and then they go silent. And no one explains to the 2 companies being merged. There's no communication. Even things like, hey, we hit a bump in the road. We're having some frustration. Or no one says, you're not going to lose your job. They don't tell you anything. And people assume the worst and they start leaving. I just got an email today. This guy's been on the road. He's been with this company for 15 years. He's leaving. I guarantee it's communication because every time I talk to him. Well, with AI, you're saying that if you don't communicate that AI is going to be the cape,
Yep.
then people will assume it's just going to be the next new hire,
Correct.
and they're out the door.
Yeah. I mean, when I speak about this,
Yeah.
I ask the question, I say, I just put up on the screen, I say, when I say artificial intelligence, I want you to tell me the first thing that comes into your head.
Nice.
Guess what they say?
The enemy.
They say Skynet, Terminator.
Yes.
I'm telling you, it's like
Yeah.
99 out of
Yeah.
100 people. That's exactly what they say.
Yeah. 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 I think you and I are both fortunate, right? We were pulled into it no matter why. There's no way we couldn't be.
Sure.
And like anything else, if you play around with it for 20 minutes a day, after like 3 months, you're not afraid of it. All of a sudden, you're like, holy crap. To your point, I love the cape analogy. I'm like, I think my cape just got a little bigger.
Sure.
You know?
Exactly.
But it doesn't change.
It's unique because it has an impact. I mean, unlike many other Salesforce projects or products, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, even self-service, case deflection, all that stuff.
Yeah.
AI disrupts the social contract
Yep.
in a way that none of those other products have. And so we have to go about treating it differently in the same way that if we have stakeholders who have a higher level of anxiety, they've just come off of a failed project, right? Like there's an allergy and a malady inside the business. We can't just go straight to the brass tacks of like what we're going to do. We got to go back and be like, hey, let me assure you of like why the disaster is going to be averted. And are you willing to trust in that process and be enlisted into an evidence-based process where I'm the Sherpa, the disinterested advocate, that I'll go with the pace you want. We'll stop and make base camp up the mountain, wherever you want. We'll make sure you're properly equipped, well-fed. But I need you because you're actually the expert. You're actually the one who knows the customer. You're actually the one who's going to handle the complexities and is actually going to shepherd and be the staffer of whatever AI solution we come up with. And so it's vital that you stick here and that we provide you what you need so you can be committed for the long term.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Let's talk a little bit about really good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about you. Where were you raised?
I was raised on farms, man. I was raised on fruit farms in the Central Valley, California.
You're my second farm-raised guest in a week. I'm sorry, Central Valley.
Yes, California. So I was actually raised in rural Fresno County, cities like Layton, Centerville, Riverdale, Sanger. So basically, you only know these by association because when you buy almonds, when you buy raisins, when you buy pistachios, oranges.
Yeah, Fresno claims a ton of those honors.
Yeah, well, I was a foster kid for 9 years, and so my foster parents were beekeepers and were farmers, and my dad was blue collar, like he was a truck driver, and but he was like an entrepreneur. He had like 2 or 3 things, and so that's where I really cut my teeth on just learning how to figure things out and just asking a lot of questions. I love talking about honey and bees to anybody who wants to chat because it's so fascinating. But that's where I grew up. And then I moved into Clovis later when I went back with my bio mom when I was 9. And
you reconnected with your bio mom at 9. And how's that relationship with your foster parents and your bio mom? Right,
Yeah, unfortunately, not great. I mean, my parents have all passed on now. May they rest in peace.
I'm sorry, man.
But yeah, my bio mom really had no love lost from my foster parents. And so, but I didn't care, man. When I got married, I had 2 mom dances.
Yeah,
I gave both my parents equal respect and honor. And I'm just so grateful.
Thanks for trusting me and the audience to share that. I think it's really important. Shows your vulnerability. Everybody wants to hear the story about how they all got along perfectly. And I think you turned that challenge, I often say that curse, but you turned that challenge into a gift, which is 2 mom dances at your wedding. And believe me, as a guy, as a DJ of a lot of weddings, I guarantee you those 2 women, it was one of the greatest memories of their life. Because all the time, people are, I'm nervous. It's going to be too long. Can you cut it short? I'm like, let me tell you, I will watch. And if I feel like you're out of gas, I'll cut it. I never have to cut it, dude.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they step in and they're hugging you and they're going moment, back, man. Dude, they're in the moment. And frankly, it could be I don't know that we would go 5 minutes, but most songs are 2.5 to 4.
Sure.
very few people give me the cut sign. Very few. And sometimes it's probably just the mom who's like, yo, my legs can't take it. That's really,
Yeah.
but emotionally and all that, they want to be there, dude. So
Yeah.
thanks
Well,
for
let me
sharing
just, if
that.
you don't mind, for
Yeah.
anybody who's listening,
No,
I mean,
good.
I look
Yeah.
at my being a foster kid actually as one of the aspects that enabled me to be a founder kid. And so,
Yeah, what's that mean? Tell me. Yeah.
I call it entrepreneurism, is growing a great life out of the crap in your past. And I think there's an aspect that really this correlates to soft skills because, man, it creates bridges with people. Your ability to kind of like tap into the fact of all those experiences and other experiences that people have had and be able to exhibit empathy and be able to connect, dude, that makes people willing to share their bruises, their bumps, their scabs about why this didn't work, why they failed before, what the political dramas are. And that is what gives us the ability to succeed.
And that is, thanks for sharing that as well. I think a lot of people who go through this type of adversity, I think a lot of people process it as a curse or a negative or things like that. You found a way to, what I would call, turn into a gift. Do you remember, like, do you have any, or what recollection do you have about how that happened? Or do you think, like, your earliest memories are like, yeah, man, I don't know, I just think I came out of the womb like that?
I think there's a combination. I mean, I definitely think that, kind of like, God's design for his mold for me was that I see the cup half full and that I look at a lot of these circumstances as just learning opportunities, that there's just a way of looking at the world where you can see a problem as a setback, as a blocker, or you can see a problem that's surrounded by potential opportunity, right? To either learn from it, to either be able to empathize with someone else related to it, or to have gains where other people kind of fear to tread, right? They don't want to go down there because it's unpleasant. I think the second thing was also, my foster dad, his name's Fred, and he had a really tough upbringing. His dad was a veteran. His dad never told him he was proud of him. I try not to cry because I love the guy.
Dude,
But,
I mean, thanks for
but his
sharing
example with
Yeah.
us, I had two brothers and a sister. His example with us is that he took that hardship of like not being able to be connected with his dad and all of that, and he took that and said, I am going to change. Whenever my kids are within arm's reach, I'm rubbing their head. I'm giving them a back scratch. I'm telling them I love them. How proud of them I are. I'm going to invite them. You know how hard it is as a parent. I'm going to invite them to say, hey, you try and drive the truck. I don't care if it takes us slower. You grind the gears a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He's going to invite me in and show me how to drive the truck. I don't even have to push the clutch, so I don't even have to be tall, right? And, he showed me with bees how to use the extractor, how to do the hives.
Come on, man. That's awesome.
Like, it's, to me, he demonstrated for me how to turn, like what I would say a rough diamond into something beautiful, cut and shiny. And so to me, I just think about that all the time as an example of, we all have those opportunities in life where, there's rough diamonds all around us, and they're ugly and they're heavy and sometimes they cut, but taken in the right perspective, right? They can be stripped and cut and shined, and they become some of the most valuable assets that we ever attain.
Well said, my friend. Again, thanks for sharing the something that's so important to you. Life is fleeting. Did you have a time or chance or two to tell them that you appreciated that?
I did, because my bio mom wasn't really affectionate towards them. She made no, desire, and made no attempts to stay in touch. And so when I was going to graduate high school and potentially move from my hometown, I spent a year tracking them down, and I found them again.
Oh man,
and was able
seriously,
to stay
dude?
in touch. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, dude.
I found them and I stayed in touch, and thank God, because when they got older, unfortunately, my other siblings were totally derelict. Like, in fact, they were stealing from my parents. And left them. And so I went in there, man, and thank God, my wife and I, and we took them and took care of them, got food delivered. Eventually I moved them down here to LA to an assisted living space, and we got to be with them 3 times a week. So I'm just grateful that I was able to give back just a little bit based on how much they gave to me when I was a kid.
Well, thanks for sharing that. On a cynical and half serious perspective, I thought of another people first method you could augment,
Yeah.
which is you're going to teach people once they turn 55 to not be jerks or whatever. I always say that I thought when I turned 50, I'm like, I can't wait. All my friends are going to grow up. And some of my relationships just to the moon, dude. But some of them, when you get a little older and you see people struggling, you're like, okay, I need my friends and my family to jump in. I'm like, what the heck? What? Even down to like, I have a grandmom who passed away, and of my 5 aunts and uncles, the one uncle went in before the reading of the will and took her color TV out of her house.
Wow.
Her color TV and something else. And when they went to read the will, he was going to get way more than that. So you know what the executor did? Wrote him a letter saying, "Dear so-and-so,
you've been paid in full.
You chose to take these things. You can have them. No one got angry or mad at him, at least to his face. And this concludes." I don't know how you say that as an executor.
For sure, but you've been paid in full.
This is the dude I was playing baseball with and took me for ice cream and gave me hugs. So I think we need another class for when you get older, how not to act that way.
It's so important. But on that point, it's really valuable here is there are, when you learn, for example, like how to do data modeling in Salesforce, it doesn't necessarily have impacts, on your volunteering and on your family and all this. But when you learn how to stop, slow down, and like have empathetic listening where you're looking for specific things, that has residual benefit across your entire life.
Dude, 100%. I'm thinking here going, maybe the producers will do this. We'll make sure. But I think some of these stuff here, especially at the end, I think here's the big connection, right? Which is, cool, man. If you're in Salesforce or you're a techie, whatever, like these things matter, and development matters, and all that matters.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, when you lead with kindness, when you lead with active listening, when you lead with compassion, when you work on the skill, in other words, it's okay that you don't have all this at the top of your head, right? Mm-hmm. It's correct. Okay. It's a skill you should work on, right?
Yeah.
We have coaches in everything except our careers and our day jobs and all in our lives.
Right. Some of the most important aspects
for the training. You don't get coaches there. But I think that's the big takeaway is this is worth every minute of your time and money to make this kind of investment, right? The rewards are just, as long as you look at the rewards as more than just how much time or money did I save in the short term, as long as you look at it more than just that, then it's a no-brainer. And I hope today's episode has helped a lot of people. For the people like me, it makes me want to go back and say, sharpen the skills, dude. Like, don't rest on the laurels. But for folks who are struggling with making that connection, and believe me, I know a lot of them, and it's not because I don't want to, it's just they're some of the things we talked about before. Anxiety, they don't know that being scripted and having cheat cards and all that is actually pretty normal stuff. I really want to make sure people are encouraged to go back and watch this. And then lastly, reach out to you. So share with the audience how we can track you down.
Yeah,
including
I love it.
Where you might speak. I think you said you speak. I don't know if it's on a regular basis, but
yeah. So I think to your point, it's especially what I would call people first power in the age of AI is on the radical exponential increase. So if you think about the why, the what, and the how, AI is going to be taking more of the how, the basement of our role, and we need to be moving on up into the higher echelons floors of our role. And the highest paid people, I believe, on every project will be the people who can master these intangible soft skills, because I can always augment my technical skills. I can always find someone who knows Apex. I can always find someone who knows this. But if I need to find someone who's responsive, find someone who can actually come in and do discovery in this project without any prior relationship, that's much, much more difficult and therefore much more valuable and irreplaceable. So people can reach out. They can go, we got a People First Method page on LinkedIn. They can follow my LinkedIn profile at /Jon Cline. They can follow us on Instagram, and really, they can go to peoplefirstmethod.com and just, we have a free guide on turning soft skills into hard money. It's a great place for people to start and evaluating and just thinking about what could this mean for me? Because I believe, to your point, I believe it's worth millions for people in promotions, in projects, in new opportunities, because you will be the most valuable asset in these projects moving forward. as AI starts to take the low-level basement stuff out of our hands.
Great summary. Great summary. I'll conclude with you said in the beginning, make sure I know you really want to stress that you could monetize your mentoring and your soft skills. I think the part that you've really, really kind of re-enlightened for me is it's not just money. Like monetization is money. It's ROI. It's being valuable. But dude, it's feeling good. And it ain't that hard. You just got to practice.
Exactly. And man, it's so great to be surrounded by people who are committed to your success and who are trying to learn with you. I mean, it's one of the most gratifying things is just growing and maturing with people.
Thanks for sharing all that, Jon. My audience is going to love this. I so much appreciate you being on the show today.
My pleasure, man. Great to be here. And let's bring more people first power in this age.
I hear you, dude. To everyone watching, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation today with Jon. We'll see you on the next one.
Magic in the Cloud podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.